Hoenn feels like warmth made into a map, salt in the air, green in the light. The sea moves first, and the land answers. Roots don't just connect towns here, they inhale and exhale, wide at the edge of the ocean and tight through the hush of trees. You can hear that rhythm if you slow down. Rain ticking on leaves, waves folding into themselves, footsteps that soften when the sand gets wet. This is a region built on balance, land, sea, and sky, learning to share the same breath, not with noise, but with patience, not with spectacle, but with small signs. A path that bends around a dune, a bridge that hums over water, a town that glows like late afternoon. If you listen, Hoenn tells its story quietly, in tides that return, in wind that remembers, in stone that keeps the shape of old rain. Tonight, we'll walk it slowly, from shoreline to crater lake, from whispering grass to storm-bright clouds, collecting the little truths this place left behind. Breathe in. We're in Hoenn now. Hoenn was the first region where the ocean wasn't just decoration, it was the world itself. Half of the map lies beneath shimmering waves, with currents that pull and release like breath. Traveling through its seas feels less like crossing distance and more like following a heartbeat. Hidden dive routes lead into pale blue stillness, where coral shadows drift past like memories. Every journey through those waters reminds you that in Hoenn, the ocean isn't a border, it's home. When Hoenn's Pokédex opened, it introduced 135 new species, an entire ecosystem born at once. From Treecko's forest calm to Deoxys's cosmic pulse, each creature seemed to embody a corner of the region's spirit. Together, they formed a world that felt dense with life, humid with possibility. Hoenn's design wasn't about rarity but rhythm. Pokémon arranged like notes in a living song, each one carrying the warmth, rain, and quiet awe that made the region feel alive. Double battles appeared for the first time here, changing how the world felt in motion. It wasn't just one trainer against another anymore, it was two minds, two rhythms, colliding. The developers said the goal was cooperation, not chaos, learning to read between moves, to notice how harmony could outshine brute strength. Every double battle became a conversation between partners, where timing mattered more than power. In Hoenn, victory wasn't loud. It was the shared breath between two Pokémon moving as one. Natures were born in Hoenn, tiny invisible personalities that shaped every Pokémon's path. A modest one might channel quiet brilliance. A brave one might step forward even when it shouldn't. These traits didn't just tweak numbers, they gave life texture. Suddenly, two Pokémon of the same species could feel completely different. Behind the code was a philosophy that strength isn't uniform and difference itself is what makes a world breathe. Even the smallest temperament could ripple across an entire journey. Abilities came alive in this generation, passive gifts that made Pokémon feel more instinctive, more real. Some could summon rain, others stand their ground against fear. A Gyarados' Intimidate wasn't just a stat drop, it was the feeling of the air tightening before a storm. The team wanted each battle to tell a story of nature and adaptation, where talent and environment merged. Abilities turned Pokémon into forces of the world again, alive with reflexes beyond the player's command. Hoenn brought the idea of contests, battles that didn't end with fainting, but with applause. Here, Pokémon weren't measured only by strength, but by expression. Coolness, beauty, cuteness, cleverness, and toughness became new languages of connection. The stages shimmered with rhythm and color, a celebration of creativity disguised as competition. It was the region reminding players that charm could be its own power, that confidence, grace, and joy were just as vital as courage. Every sparkle was a heartbeat on display. Hidden among Hoenn's cliffs and forests were the first secret bases, carved sanctuaries made with a single move, secret power. They weren't grand or functional, just quiet places to rest between storms. Players filled them with flags, cushions, and laughter, creating proof that adventure could also mean stillness. The developers called it a place for your breath. Each hideout became a memory, tucked into the roots and caves of a living world, waiting for someone to return home. Shoal Cave moves with the tides. At low tide, the sea pulls back, revealing salt crystals glittering like stars on stone. When the water rises, shells drift into the caves, soft reminders of the world outside. Collecting them wasn't just a quest, it was a ritual, echoing Hoenn's cycle of give and return. From those gifts, players could craft the Shell Bell, an item that heals when you give harm, perfectly capturing the region's quiet lesson. Even battle can be gentle. On Route 119, where the rain never stops, lives one of Hoenn's strangest mysteries. Phoebus. It appears only on 6 random tiles across a vast river, each chosen by the game's hidden rhythm. For most, it remains unseen, lost beneath endless water. Finding one feels like fate rather than chance, as if the river itself finally trusts you with a secret. What makes Phoebus special isn't its rarity, it's that patience, persistence, and luck all flow together to create a miracle. The odds of finding a Phoebus tile are roughly 1 in 73, a number so small it feels more like a wish than a statistic. For many players, that fish became a symbol of devotion. Hours of casting, nothing but ripples, until one moment the surface breaks and something unlikely answers. In Hoenn, discovery is often disguised as endurance. Every cast into Route 119's rain is an act of hope, and every Phoebus caught is proof that the world listens back. Mirage Island is one of Hoenn's quietest legends, a place that exists only when fate and code align. Each day, the game generates a hidden number, and if one of your Pokemon's unseen personality values matches it, the island appears through the mist south of Passifidlog. Most players will never see it, yet its possibility lingers like a dream beneath the waves, a reminder that some parts of Hoenn are not meant to be reached by effort, but by coincidence so perfect it feels like magic. Those who do find Mirage Island discover that it's more than a rumor. Its sand is brighter, untouched by footprints, and wild Winot wander through the silence as if they've been waiting forever. At its heart grows a single lychee berry, the only one found naturally in Hoenn. The place feels sacred, a pause in the sea where time hesitates. The developers described it as a secret kindness, a world rewarding curiosity with peace instead of power. Routes 132 through 134 form Hoenn's great current, a living labyrinth of water that never flows the same way twice. Each entry tile changes where you'll be carried, sending you spiraling through hidden items, sandbars, and dive spots. What seems like chaos is actually rhythm, a slow heartbeat of the ocean pulling travelers where it pleases. Some players spend hours mastering its paths, learning that the sea's pattern isn't random at all. It's choreography, and you move only when the tide allows. Cast form is the heart of Hoenn's weather, born from the sky itself. The Weather Institute created it to reflect the moods of the world: sun, rain, storm, and calm. On Route 119, where rain never ends, cast form changes form as the drops fall, mirroring the region's endless cycle of balance. Its transformation isn't just visual, it's a quiet reminder that adaptation is beauty. Cast form doesn't fight the weather, it becomes it, proving that in Hoenn, harmony is the truest kind of strength. On Route 120, invisible Kecleons stand like living barriers, shimmering outlines against the forest path. Only Steven's Devon scope can reveal them, its lens designed to show what hides in plain sight. When the beam passes, the Kecleon flicker into being, startled by their own exposure. It's one of Hoenn's most subtle moments of magic, technology not used to control, but to understand. The Devon scope teaches you to look again, to realize that the world is full of things waiting to be seen. Contests in Hoenn were more than pageantry, they were choreography. Certain moves could follow others in perfect rhythm. Rain dance before thunder, sunny day before solar beam. When performed in sequence, the crowd would roar as if recognizing a hidden harmony between nature and timing. These combos weren't about power, but expression, turning battle strategy into something closer to poetry. Each chain was a conversation between Pokémon and trainer, rhythm and risk, blending into an art form that glimmered brighter than victory itself. Pokeblocks were the taste of creativity, berries blended into bright confections that brought out a Pokemon's personality. Each color and flavor represented a different kind of charm: red for cool, blue for beauty, green for cleverness, and more. Feeding them wasn't just preparation for contests, it was care made visible. Players learned the subtle balance of flavor and sheen, mixing sweetness with patience. In a world often built on numbers and battles, Pokeblocks reminded everyone that nurturing was its own quiet kind of power. Shedinja is one of Hoenn's strangest miracles, a ghost born from absence. When Nincada evolves, it leaves behind an empty shell, and if your party has space, that shell opens its eyes and breathes for the first time. With only one hit point and an impossible defense called Wonder Guard, it exists like a whisper between life and death. It cannot grow stronger, only persist. Shedinja's story isn't about survival, it's about transformation, proof that even what's left behind can find new purpose. Spinda is chaos turned adorable. Every one of them carries a unique pattern of spots, their placement determined by invisible code buried deep in the game's math. There are over 4 billion possible variations, and no two are meant to be the same. For most players, the difference is subtle, but the idea is profound: individuality as design. Hoenn wanted every encounter to feel singular, reminding us that even in repetition, the world leaves space for chance, imperfection, and surprise. The sealed chamber lies hidden beneath Route 134, accessible only by diving into silence. Its walls are covered in Braille, a language of dots that must be felt rather than read, telling the story of beings long asleep. The room's message guides players to awaken the Reggie trio, scattered across the region. Every sound there echoes like breath against stone, as if the world itself were remembering. The chamber isn't just a puzzle, it's a conversation with time, written in patience and reverence. To awaken the ancient titans hidden across Hoenn, the order of your party becomes a ritual. Relicanth must stand first, a living fossil born from the deep, while Wylord, vast and gentle, watches from the end. When placed just so, the sea floor trembles, and the sealed chambers stir. It's a puzzle that feels almost ceremonial, as if the ocean itself were reciting an old prayer. The pairing of smallest and largest, oldest and newest, captures Hoenn's balance perfectly. Strength born from symmetry, power born from respect. Regice's resting place is the quietest room in Hoenn. Inside, the air hums like frozen wind, and the braille walls whisper a command: wait. In one version, stillness itself is the key. You simply stand there, unmoving for 2 full minutes, until the stone acknowledges your patience. In another, you must walk a pattern in front of the wall, tracing unseen symbols on the floor. Either way, it's not a test of strength, but faith, proof that even ice recognizes calm persistence. Sky Pillar rises like a wound in the clouds, its spiral of cracked floors daring you to climb. Only the Mach Bike's impossible speed can carry you across the fragile gaps before they collapse. Every level hums with wind, and the higher you go, the more the music fades into heartbeat. By the time you reach the summit, it feels less like conquest and more like surrender, a pilgrimage through movement. There, above the storm line, Rayquaza waits, the sky's own guardian of silence. Drifting off Hoenn's coast is the abandoned ship, a place of rust and memories. The sea sighs through broken windows, and each cabin feels like a moment preserved in salt. In the remakes, it returns as Saint-Mauville, an underwater research facility turned ghost town. Where once there were travelers, now there are divers and secrets. It's Hoenn's quiet reminder that progress and decay share the same rhythm, one rising, one sinking, both swallowed gently by time's tide. The Eon ticket was Hoenn's most personal secret, a physical item that bridged worlds. Originally distributed through the e-reader, it let trainers sail to Southern Island and meet the twin dragons, Latias and Latios. Years later, in the remakes, it reappeared through modern sharing, passed between players like a whispered invitation. The ticket itself became more than data. It was connection made tangible. Every exchange carried a little wonder, proof that discovery could still be something you hand to another person. Long before online events, there was the Old Sea Map, a Japan-only gift that opened the path to Faraway Island. There, past currents and calm waters, waited Mew, the origin of all Pokémon. The island's design was simple: green grass, quiet breeze, the sound of the sea pressing at its edges. But the meaning was enormous. It was Game Freak's secret nod to the beginning, a small world within a world reminding players that every story starts with something curious, kind, and ancient. The battle frontier in Emerald was a dream-turned structure, a place built around the idea that mastery has many forms. 7 facilities stood like temples, each one testing a different philosophy: luck, knowledge, memory, endurance. The music shifted with every hall, matching the personality of its challenge. It wasn't just an endgame, it was an experiment in identity. The battle frontier wasn't about reaching the limit, it was about realizing how many kinds of strength could exist inside a single trainer. At the top of each frontier stood a frontier brain, Hoenn's answer to champions. They were not villains or rivals, but philosophers of battle, speaking through their teams. Each one represented an idea: the calm of precision, the risk of chaos, the patience of time. Defeating them didn't feel like victory. It felt like learning. Their trophies were tiny silver symbols, quiet acknowledgments that what you'd mastered wasn't power, but perspective. In Hoenn, even competition is treated as self-reflection. Hoenn's Safari Zone expanded with Emerald, turning exploration into something more personal. Beyond its gates, new paths opened, revealing Johto species long absent from the region. Pokeblock feeders stood among trees, luring Pokemon by flavor rather than chance. The zone became a quiet blend of nostalgia and novelty, a meeting point between generations. Each step there felt like walking through time, the grass carrying both the sound of old memories and the gentle whisper of the world evolving in harmony. Route 113 stretches like a painted desert, where the air drifts with soft gray ash from the nearby volcano. Each step fills your soot sack, and travelers trade the gathered dust at the glass workshop for handcrafted flutes. The process feels ritualistic, walking, collecting, transforming. The music those flutes produce isn't perfect, but warm and human, like wind trapped in crystal. It's one of Hoenn's smallest, but most poetic loops. Ash from fire turned into sound, destruction reshaped into melody. Fiery path and jagged pass are Hoenn's arteries of heat, twin roots breathing out the pulse of mount. Chimney. The ground trembles softly beneath every step, as if the volcano itself is dreaming. Steam hisses through cracks in the stone, and wild Pokemon adapted to flame scurry between shadows of molten red. These paths connect more than towns. They connect worlds, the civilized calm of Lava Ridge and the wild heartbeat of the mountain. In Hoenn, even danger glows gently, flickering like memory. At the heart of Slateport City stands its modest museum, a place meant for learning but destined for conflict. Depending on your version, it's invaded by either Team Magma or Team Aqua, two reflections of the same human flaw. Inside, their argument isn't about greed, but vision. Too much land, too much sea. It's a moment that transforms ideology into story, showing that even within beauty and science, ambition can drown reason. Slateport's museum becomes a stage for Hoenn's eternal debate. Norman represents something no other gym leader had before him: family. He isn't a distant figure of authority or mystery. He's your father. The player's journey begins not just to collect badges, but to understand him. His normal type team reflects his grounded nature, consistent, dependable, yet quietly strong. When you finally face him in battle, it's not about victory, it's about acknowledgement, the passing of torch and trust. Hoenn turned the gym system into something deeply human, the challenge of growing up. Wally begins as fragile and uncertain, coughing through his first encounter with a wild Ralts. He seems like a temporary companion, a symbol of vulnerability. But by the time you meet again at Victory Road, he's transformed, calm, confident, his Pokemon reflecting the same growth. His story mirrors the players, but gentler, shaped by kindness instead of conquest. Wally isn't a rival to defeat. He's proof that strength can grow from gentleness. His battle feels like a quiet, mutual graduation. Zangoose and Seviper exist to remind players that rivalry isn't just human. One is lithe and sharp, the other coiled and patient, their hatred woven into Hoenn's ecosystem. They never appear together, version exclusives separated by design, each guarding its territory. Their lore speaks of generations of conflict, yet neither truly wins. In a region built on balance, their eternal fight adds contrast. a scar on a perfect world. Even in nature's harmony, Hoenn leaves room for wild, unending tension. Dive redefined exploration in Hoenn, turning oceans into layered worlds. With a single HM, the sea gained depth, a place not just to sail over, but to descend into. The first time players sank beneath the waves, the music softened, colors cooled, and everything slowed. Hidden caves, ancient ruins, and unseen life waited below, silent but alive. Dive transformed travel into meditation. It wasn't about reaching new places. It was about listening to what existed beneath, where the world held its breath. Waterfall carried that same idea upward instead of down. It wasn't just a barrier, it was an ascent, a vertical passage through movement and sound. The rushing animation gave illusion to gravity bending, the water glowing softly as you rose. It led to high cliffs, secluded caves, and secret finales like meteor falls. The move symbolized progression through serenity, not breaking through obstacles, but flowing with them. In Hoenn, even climbing felt like surrendering to nature's rhythm rather than overpowering it. Meteor Falls is a cathedral carved by time, where light drips from the ceiling like rain. Inside, trainers of dragons make their home, and in Emeralds, Stephen waits near the hidden waterfall, watching the shimmer. The place feels ancient, filled with quiet gravity, stones that remember meteors, water that hums of the sky. It's not just a cave, but a meeting point between heaven and earth. Every sound echoes upward, reminding visitors that even fallen stars leave beauty behind. New Mobile sits beneath the main city like a forgotten heartbeat, a power plant designed to hum but never roar. When Watson sends you there, it isn't a quest for danger, but responsibility, to understand energy and control. The corridors buzz softly, and the air smells faintly metallic. It's Hoenn's version of progress hidden underground, electricity bottled and quiet. The city above thrives in light, while its shadow hums below, a reflection of Hoenn's constant dialogue between nature and technology. In the remakes, Mobile grew upward, turning from a town into a gleaming labyrinth of steel and light. ORAS transformed it into a living mall city, full of side stories, apartments, and neon echoes of modern life. The designers described it as a city that forgot to sleep, a place where progress became architecture, yet beneath its music and movement, there's still Watson's warmth and laughter, grounding the mechanical glow. Mobile became a symbol of Hoenn's evolution, comfort found in constant motion. Contest spectaculars in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire transformed Hoenn's humble pageants into full-blown performances. Spotlights now sweep across the stage, and the music rises like an anthem. Each Pokémon struts, spins, and glows, turning the old contests into something closer to an idol showcase. The crowd roars, the host hypes every move, and even the rival coordinator has flair. It's Hoenn reimagined through theater, still about personality and charm, but now dressed in glitter, laughter, and rhythm, where performance truly meets pride. Melodic became the symbol of beauty in motion, a Pokémon so elegant it defined Hoenn's contests. Evolving from the plain Phoebus required effort and care, feeding Pokeblocks until its beauty stat shimmered just right. That transformation wasn't just evolution, it was devotion rewarded. Players learned patience, artistry, and the joy of seeing something dull turn radiant. In contests, Melodic's flowing movements and soft glow captured hearts instantly. It embodied Hoenn's message perfectly, that beauty isn't given, it's nurtured through love and time. Clamperl is one of Hoenn's quiet wonders, a single shell hiding two destinies. When traded while holding the deep-sea scale, it becomes Gorbis, sleek and graceful as a ribbon in current. With the deep-sea tooth, it becomes Huntail, fierce and sharp like a shadow in the deep. The pair feel like two halves of one ocean, light and dark, calm and hunger. Their split evolution reflected the region's theme again, duality without conflict, two lives born from one tide, both shaped by the sea's will. Skitty and Wailord became one of gaming's earliest inside jokes. Their compatibility in the Field Egg group meant that technically, the smallest cat in Hoenn could breed with the largest whale. It was absurd, endearing, and unforgettable, a tiny reminder of how game logic doesn't always match real-world sense. The community turned it into legend, but behind the humor was something wholesome, the idea that connection, even unlikely, could exist anywhere. In Hoenn, even nature's quirks became reasons to smile. Azurill carried one of Hoenn's strangest secrets. It could change gender when it evolved into Meryl. The glitch came from mismatched gender ratios between the two species. Sometimes, a female Azurill would evolve into a male Marill, a quiet data error with a human heart. Players joked about it, but the moment felt oddly emotional, like watching identity shift by accident. Later games fixed the bug, yet that small imperfection remains a gentle reminder that even in perfect worlds, surprises still breathe. Gardevoir's Mega Evolution in ORAS was a love letter to one of Hoenn's most beloved Pokémon. Its new form glimmered with elegance, gown-like and regal, amplifying its psychic empathy. Later, Gallaudet, its counterpart introduced in a later generation, received a Mega 2 reflecting their dual nature, grace and resolve, thought and action. Together, they turned the Ralts line into something mythic, representing emotion itself. Mega Evolution didn't just make them stronger, it made them feel transcendent, like ideas taking physical, luminous form. Blaziken was Hoenn's fiery trailblazer and the first starter ever revealed to Mega Evolve. When X and Y debuted the concept, Blaziken stood front and center, its flames flaring like pride reborn. The decision tied neatly into ORAS's legacy. It became a symbol of power and nostalgia. Its megaform's fierce stance and burning mane embodied motion itself. More than a fighter, Blaziken became a bridge between generations, proving that sometimes the past doesn't fade. It ignites again, brighter than before. Sceptile's Mega Evolution turned it from a forest guardian into a dragon of leaves and light. Its design gave it dragon typing, completing a cycle, grass, fire, and water starters, each finding deeper ties to Hoenn's nature. With speed like wind slicing through treetops, it felt alive with motion. The added dragon energy connected it to the late-game skies, filled with dragon trainers and meteor stories. Sceptile's Mega wasn't just stronger, it was poetic, the forest reaching upward to meet the heavens. Swampert's megaform became the rain's answer to thunder. Its body swelled with power, built to move through storms, every motion heavy but unstoppable. The transformation wasn't about beauty, it was about endurance. Combined with drizzle support, it swept through teams like a tide with purpose. In Hoenn's story of water and land, Swampert represented adaptation and balance, the calm after chaos, the wave after the flame. Its mega design turned the humble mudfish into the embodiment of the storm's steady heart. Deoxys has always been Hoenn's creature of forms: speed, defense, attack, and normal, all shaped by the version you played. In Ruby and Sapphire, you could only glimpse part of its identity, but Oras finally unified them. Inside the game's new form-changing feature, you could alter Deoxys at will, revealing its true fluid nature. Each shape wasn't just a stat difference, it was a reflection of survival and change. Deoxys became not a monster, but a metaphor, adaptation written in starlight and code. Jirachi was Hoenn's wish made real, a tiny star that slept within data and dreams. Distributed through bonus discs and special events, it arrived like a comet across cartridges, its lore woven into the region's sky-obsessed mythos. Said to awaken once every 1,000 years, it granted wishes written on notes beside sleeping trainers. Jirachi represented hope itself, science and fantasy meeting at midnight. Even today, its soft chime feels like a lullaby from space, reminding Hoenn that not all legends roar. Some simply hum. Regigigas, though born later, reshaped how players saw Hoenn's ancient titans. It reframed Regirock, Regis, and Registeel not as separate guardians, but as its creations, pieces of a greater whole. Its presence gave their story a new spine, linking Hoenn's ruins to Sinnoh's myths. Suddenly, the Braille carvings and silent chambers felt like prayers to a sleeping god. The idea was both beautiful and eerie, that the beings of rock, ice, and steel were once crafted by something that now waits beneath the earth. Latias and Latios embodied the soul of Hoenn's horizon, two guardians of sky and sea. In Ruby and Sapphire, they roamed freely across the map, fleeting and unpredictable. You'd catch only a glimpse before they vanished beyond sight. But in the remakes, the Eon Flute gave that bond new meaning. Now you could soar with them, your perspective lifted to the clouds. It transformed their story from pursuit to companionship, a partnership between human and legend, where the chase finally became flight. Soar was more than a mechanic, it was a revelation. For the first time, you could see Hoenn from above, its rivers winding like silver veins, its forests glowing emerald in the sun. Mirage spots dotted the horizon, small pockets of mystery hidden in the endless blue. Landing on them revealed legendaries, fragments of myth scattered like constellations. Soar turned exploration into serenity. No random battles, no noise, just wind, memory, and the quiet realization that Hoenn had always been dreaming upward. The Trick House on Route 110 was Hoenn's wink to the curious. A single, unassuming hut held shifting mazes that changed as your badges grew. Inside, the Trickmaster built each puzzle with childlike pride, daring you to keep pace with his imagination. Every visit felt like meeting an old friend who'd rearranged his home just for you. The Trick House wasn't about rewards, it was about wonder. A small slice of Hoenn's humor, reminding players that adventure could also mean getting joyfully lost. Mirage spots in the ORAS remakes expanded Hoenn's mythology into the sky. Unlike the original Mirage Island, these phenomena appeared and disappeared across both air and sea, cycling daily in a cosmic rhythm. Some led to legendaries from other regions, turning the heavens into a living museum of myths. Each glowing portal felt like a heartbeat in the clouds, a moment where Hoenn reached beyond itself. They weren't just events. They were proof that wonder doesn't vanish when you look away, it just moves. The weather trio, Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza, formed the breath of Hoenn itself. Land, sea, and sky were not rivals, but rhythms locked in constant balance. Their myth wasn't simply about destruction, it was creation told through conflict. Groudon's heat, Kyogre's rain, and Rayquaza's calm above the storm shaped every part of the region's design. Even the smallest details, mirages, tides, roots, echoed their influence. Hoenn wasn't built around them, it was built by them, their ancient argument still rippling through every sunrise and wave. In Emerald, the story deepened. For the first time, both villainous teams, Magma and Aqua, rose together, their ambitions clashing into chaos. The world darkened, rain and flame devouring the sky, until Rayquaza descended to silence it all. That moment reframed Hoenn's myth into harmony restored. Rayquaza didn't destroy, it reminded. The lesson wasn't that power wins, but that peace requires presence. Emerald's finale remains one of Pokemon's purest symbols of balance. Three forces learning, finally, to breathe in the same world. Primal Reversion, in ORAS, gave Hoenn's legends their pulse back. Groudon and Kyogre didn't mega-evolve, they remembered. Returning to their original states, they summoned ancient weather beyond control, sunlight that burned oceans, rain that drowned mountains. The mechanic turned mythology into gameplay, letting you feel the weight of divine power. Their new forms shimmered like fossils reborn, glowing with runes of forgotten energy. It wasn't evolution forward, it was memory awakening, the past reclaiming its voice through storm, heat, and light. Rayquaza's evolution broke every rule. It didn't need a stone to change, only the will to ascend. When it learns Dragon Ascent, its megaform ignites mid-flight, surrounded by a spiral of meteor light. This was more than spectacle, it was narrative completion. Groudon and Kyogre were earth and sea. Rayquaza became the balance between them. The designers described it as a god finding its voice again. In that moment, the sky itself seemed to sing, a promise that peace, too, can be powerful. Lily Cove City stood as the glittering heart of Hoenn's contests, where ribbons, spotlights, and applause intertwined into one grand stage. Trainers from every corner gathered there, their Pokémon shimmering beneath the lights, each move timed to the rise of music and emotion. In the remakes, that sparkle spread across the region, but Lily Cove remained the original home of beauty and pride. Beneath that elegant decor and cheerful host, there lingered something deeper, a sense that performance in Hoenn was its own quiet kind of storytelling. Slateport Market was Hoenn's open-air soul, a place where sea breeze carried the scent of salt and spice between stalls. Vendors shouted over the surf, selling secret base decorations, Pokeblocks, and rare TMs to travelers just off their ships. The market's layout felt alive, looping like the harbor it served. Each item wasn't just a purchase, but a fragment of the region's culture, functional trinkets wrapped in memory. Slateport reminded players that adventure begins not with battles, but with curiosity and trade. Route 119 was built as a breathing ecosystem, rain falling through layered canopies of tall grass, lightning flashing faintly behind trees. The weather there wasn't random. It shaped battles, quietly boosting water moves and muting fire. The combination turned every step into a test of adaptability. Trainers who rushed through found themselves drenched and slowed, while those who watched the rhythm of the rain learned to move with it. It was Hoenn's lesson, written in drizzle, survival through understanding, not resistance. Cast form embodied Hoenn's spirit of change. Its forecast ability transformed it with the weather, sun, rain, or snow. The world's mood became its own. What began as a scientific creation turned into a living metaphor, a creature that doesn't fight the elements, but dances with them. Cast form's forms weren't power-ups, but reflections, tiny weather systems in motion. It reminded players that harmony with nature was the region's heartbeat, and that even in chaos, identity could shift without being lost. Kecleon was camouflage turned philosophy. Its color change ability transformed its very type into whatever struck it last. A fire blast could make it burn, a water pulse could cool it blue. The idea was simple but elegant, a Pokémon defined by its environment, endlessly adaptable. On Route 120, the invisible Kecleon blocking the path wasn't an obstacle, but a metaphor. Sometimes the things you can't see are the ones most shaped by the world around them, blending perfectly into life's rhythm. Trapinch began as a stubborn little creature in Hoenn's desert, its oversized jaws clumsy but determined. Yet within it was the promise of flight. As it grew into Vibrava, the heavy steps became buzzing wings, and finally Flygon, an emerald dragon carried by sand and wind. The evolution felt like a story of transformation, grounding to freedom. Hoenn often hid beauty inside harsh environments, and Trapinch's journey was proof that patience, even in the driest places, could one day learn to soar. Deep within Meteor Falls, a rare Bagon hides in a secret room, dreaming of the sky it cannot reach. Players who find it glimpse a story of ambition, the small dragon practicing headbutts against stone, yearning for flight. When it finally evolves into Salamence, the wish becomes real, wings unfolding like destiny fulfilled. Bagon's home near meteor-scarred cliffs isn't coincidence, it's prophecy. Hoenn's world quietly mirrors its creatures, grounded by gravity but always gazing upward, believing that someday even stone will fly. After defeating the League, a visit to Stephen's old house rewards you with a beldam, a tiny floating piece of his legacy. It's silent, metallic, and curious, the first step toward Metagross, his iconic partner. The gift isn't about strength, it's inheritance. Beldam represents mentorship, the passing of knowledge from master to challenger. It connects the champion's story to yours in a way no trophy can. Hoenn didn't just let you win, it let you carry forward the wisdom of those who came before. Wailmer was one of Hoenn's earliest sea companions, a Pokémon so massive its sprite barely fit on screen. Caught off harbors and coastlines, it felt both playful and majestic, like the ocean itself had learned to laugh. On the Game Boy Advance, its rounded blue form symbolized the region's aquatic abundance. When it evolved into Wailord, that sense of scale turned sublime, a gentle titan gliding beneath the waves. Wailmer wasn't just part of Hoenn's ocean. It was the ocean, captured in pixels and warmth. Relicanth was the heartbeat of ancient seas, a living fossil resting at the bottom of Hoenn's waters. Its stony body and solemn eyes gave it an almost spiritual presence. When players discovered it was the key to awakening the Regis, placed first in the party to honor its ancestry, it felt deliberate, respectful. Relicanth wasn't strong, but it carried history. Choosing it meant understanding Hoenn's theme once again, that progress begins with remembering, and that sometimes the oldest creatures know the newest truths. Love Disc may look delicate, but it became one of Hoenn's most valuable finds, not for its strength, but for its heart. Hidden beneath its soft pink glow was the Heart Scale, an item used to help Pokémon relearn forgotten moves. Trainers farmed them tirelessly, using Thief or Covet to gather love-shaped treasures from the sea. It turned an unassuming Pokémon into a quiet cornerstone of progression. Lovedisk embodied Hoenn's poetry again. Even the simplest creature can carry the tools to help others grow. Whiscash was a lesson in contrasts, a catfish that could summon earthquakes underwater. Its dual water and ground typing gave it powerful versatility and near-perfect coverage, but also a single glaring flaw, a 4 times weakness to grass. One leaf, and the tide turns. Players learned that even balanced power has fragility built in. Whiscash's broad smile and carefree motion made it memorable. Beneath that calm, it symbolized Hoenn's design philosophy perfectly. Strength never comes without the risk of humility. Breloom was Hoenn's hidden predator, a mushroom with the instincts of a fighter. Combining the 100% accurate sleeps move Spore with devastating fighting-type power, it became both tactical and terrifying. Its design blurred the line between plant and beast, something rooted yet always advancing. Breloom taught players that appearances deceive. A cute forest creature could dismantle teams in an instant. Its popularity in battles reflected Hoenn's love for duality. Beauty and danger growing from the same soil, disguised as something ordinary. Gardevoir's grace carried into competitive play, where it became a favorite not just for its design, but for its mind. With the ability Trace, it could mirror opponents' strengths, turning power back against them. Most players ran it timid, swift, reactive, empathetic. Its success was poetic. Even in the technical world of statistics and calculations, Gardevoir's identity remained consistent, gentle, reflective, and endlessly adaptive. Hoenn didn't just give it beauty, it gave it strategy rooted in understanding, the intelligence of empathy in battle form. Slaking was Hoenn's paradox, a creature with the strength of a legend, but the spirit of a nap. Its base stats rivaled even the strongest Pokémon, yet its truant ability forced it to rest every other turn. Players called it frustrating, but the idea was brilliant. Slaking embodied raw potential restrained by nature, teaching that even the most powerful beings need limits. It turned brute force into a rhythm: act, rest, repeat. In Hoenn's world of balance, even strength must learn patience. Shedinja returned as a haunting curiosity, a being untouchable by most attacks, yet fragile as glass. Its Wonder Guard made it immune to all but super effective moves and passive damage. Battles against it were either effortless victories or puzzling defeats. But beyond mechanics, Shedinja was a symbol, a hollow shell that somehow lived, proof that absence can carry meaning. It wasn't about endurance or speed, it was about perspective, how even something that shouldn't exist can still find a way to belong. Ninjask was the wind made visible, one of the fastest creatures in Hoenn. It blurred through battles, using speed boost to grow quicker with every turn, then passing that energy to allies. Its entire existence revolved around momentum, never stopping, always flowing. Born from the same Ninkata line as Shedinja, it represented the opposite side of the soul, motion instead of stillness. Together, the two Pokémon formed a quiet yin and yang of Hoenn, one that raced ahead and one that lingered behind. Camerupt was the mountain's fury contained in calm form, With twin volcanoes on its back and eyes that glowed like magma, it embodied Team Magma's ideology, power through the land itself. In later generations, its sheer force ability made Eruption a devastating move, turning its simmering design into full-blown destruction. Yet even then, Camerupt always seemed weary, like fire learning restraint. It was Hoenn's volcano personified, unpredictable, powerful, and beautiful, a reminder that creation and ruin often come from the same flame. Walrein was Hoenn's iceberg guardian, the evolution of Spheal that turned the sea's cold into armor. In its debut, it was a bulky wall. In later formats, it became the centerpiece of hail teams, tanking damage as ice flakes fell around it. Walrein represented endurance, a creature that didn't dominate, but persisted. In a region defined by heat, it brought contrast, reminding players that even the coldest corners of the world have warmth beneath them. Its cries sounded less like a roar and more like resolve. Altaria was a cloud-given form, floating between dragon and dream. Its original typing left it vulnerable to ice, the one element dragons fear most. But in its mega evolution, fairy energy wrapped around it like light, patching its weakness and completing its design. The transformation was gentle, not fierce, fluff turning radiant. Altaria's song echoed through Hoenn as both comfort and strength, though it became the region's quiet sky spirit, proof that even dragons could find peace by softening their edges. Ludicolo was the rain's favorite dancer, half lily pad, half joy. With swift swim doubling its speed and dual watergrass coverage keeping it balanced, it turned Hoenn's endless downpours into rhythm. Its sombrero-like lily and cheerful sway weren't just aesthetics, they were confidence in motion. Ludicolo wasn't meant to dominate, but to celebrate, embodying how life adapts beautifully to its environment. Under heavy rain, it didn't just move faster, it thrived, proof that happiness itself can be a survival strategy when the world floods. Shiftry was Ludicolo's opposite, a shadow born under sunlight, with chlorophyll fueling its speed and dark power in its eyes. It thrived where brightness felt sharpest. Its design, a blend of leaf and demon, symbolized Hoenn's theme again, nature's balance between kindness and chaos. It could attack from either side, special or physical, always unpredictable. Shiftry represented ambition cloaked in wilderness, a trickster that whispered through forests like a hot wind. In Hoenn's eternal dance between weather and will, it was the storm's sly grin. Manectric was electricity given personality, nervous, sharp, and fast enough to outrun its own sound. Its yellow fur crackled like lightning frozen mid-bolt, and in battle, it embodied raw momentum. Later, its megaform granted it Intimidate, turning speed into presence, energy that made others hesitate. The design felt deliberate, not just a predator, but a living storm cloud, restless and alive. Manectric wasn't quiet strength, it was impulse personified, proof that in Hoenn, even chaos can find direction through spark and purpose. Mawile began as a curiosity, a deceptively small steel type with a grin too large for its face. In its early years, it was overlooked, a trickster without teeth. But later, Mega Evolution gave it both fairy typing and the ability huge power, transforming it into something divine. The jaws that once mocked became sacred symbols of contrast, sweetness hiding ferocity. Mawile's rebirth reflected Hoenn's love for reinvention. What was once underestimated became unstoppable, a legend whispered with both awe and fear. Sableye was Hoenn's original ghost of balance. Its dual ghost/dark typing in Generation 3 made it untouchable by normal, fighting, or psychic attacks, a strange perfection in a game of counters. With gems for eyes and a grin that shimmered like mischief itself, Sableye felt ancient yet playful. It lurked in caves, a spirit that laughed at rules. Long before megas and gimmicks, it taught that sometimes clever design beats brute force. Sableye wasn't broken. It was balance turned inside out, smiling quietly in the dark. When natures entered Hoenn's world, the game learned personality. A single modifier like Modest could turn an average Gardevoir into a wall of psychic elegance, outpacing neutral builds in both damage and grace. Behind the math was intention, to make Pokémon feel alive, with quirks, moods, and hidden preferences. Trainers began reading personalities instead of stats, learning patience with calm ones and excitement with rash ones. Natures didn't just balance numbers, they built character. Hoenn gave every creature a soul hidden in decimals. Hoenn's abilities painted weather as emotion, from Castform's forecast to Kyogre's drizzle and Groudon's drought. Every ability felt like climate with a heartbeat. Rain wasn't just water, it was renewal. Sunlight wasn't just warmth, it was pride. These mechanics didn't decorate the world, they defined it. Hoenn's entire ecosystem became interactive, every storm and ray of light carrying meaning. Abilities like these weren't random coding, they were philosophy disguised as gameplay, teaching that environment shapes life as much as strength ever could. Mirage Island's secret wasn't just randomness, it was a ritual. Each day, the Elder in Passifidlog would quietly check your Pokemon's internal code, comparing it to the hidden number that decides if the island appears. No grand animations, no clues, just a simple, "No, I can't see it today." That line became legend, a sentence that carried both disappointment and hope. Players kept returning day after day because Mirage Island wasn't about arrival. It was about belief that magic could appear in routine. Phoebus fishing on Route 119 became a test of patience disguised as gameplay. The method was simple: cast once per tile with the old rod, move on, repeat. Yet it felt like searching for meaning in the rain. Each ripple held a chance, each failure a whisper to continue. When the surface finally broke and Phoebus appeared, it wasn't luck. It was endurance rewarded. Hoenn taught players through this one mechanic that miracles are mathematical and that persistence itself is a kind of grace. Contest coordination was an art form, not a formula. The best performers planned their moves like music, chaining effects such as Sunny Day into Solar Beam for powerful appeal combos. Each routine was a dialogue between timing and trust, with Pokemon and trainer moving in tandem. The audience's reaction wasn't just feedback, it was energy feeding the stage. Contests turned battle logic into performance art, blending rhythm, beauty, and precision. Hoenn proved that strength could shine softly through choreography instead of collision. Phoebus's evolution into melodic was one of Hoenn's most poetic mechanics. An evolution not through combat or luck, but through care. Trainers raised its beauty stat with Pokeblocks, polishing dull scales until they shimmered like silk. When it finally evolved, it wasn't just stronger, it was transformed, proof that love and patience could create grace. Later generations simplified the process, but in Hoenn, the journey mattered more than the result. Melodic wasn't caught, It was earned, its beauty a reflection of the effort behind it. Secret Power was one of Hoenn's most charming experiments, a move that changed with the land itself. On grass, it sparkled with pollen. In caves, it echoed like dust. By the ocean, it splashed like rain. The added effects, paralysis, sleep, confusion, shifted with the scenery, making it feel alive. The same move that attacked could also build, carving secret bases into chosen spots. Secret Power captured Hoenn's heart perfectly. The world itself wasn't just backdrop, it was a co-author of the adventure. Secret bases turned Pokémon into something deeply personal. Hidden behind trees, caves, and walls, they let players carve small homes into Hoenn's wilderness. Flags became trophies of friendship, and furniture reflected personality. Beds, dolls, mats, and traps all built with found or traded goods. What started as a simple hideaway became a reflection of identity. Every secret base was unique, a map of its maker's creativity. It showed that even in a vast world, Hoenn always made room for your own corner of peace. Route 101 was simplicity designed with purpose, a U-shaped stretch of grass teaching movement without a tutorial box. You learned to hop ledges, weave through patches, and avoid wild Pokémon naturally. The music hummed with beginnings, light and curious, and the short walk to Oldale Town felt like a first breath in a living world. Route 101 wasn't meant to challenge. It was meant to welcome. It whispered the quiet truth of Hoenn, that even small paths can feel like discovery when walked for the first time. Petalburg Woods was Hoenn's early whisper of mystery, a green maze filled with soft light and rustling wings. It mirrored Kanto's Viridian Forest, but added layers of personality. Shroomish hiding in shade, Team Aqua's grunts plodding in the trees, the sound of dew dripping from leaves. The forest felt alive, yet calm, a pocket of serenity before the ocean routes ahead. Petalburg Woods wasn't just a tutorial, it was an atmosphere teaching players that Hoenn's beauty hides meaning even in its simplest corners. Rustboro City marked the first clash between civilization and wilderness. Devon Corporation stood as Hoenn's industrial heart, a beacon of progress built atop ancient soil. Roxanne's rock-type gym symbolized education and structure, stone as both barrier and foundation. Defeating her wasn't just about strength, it was about proving readiness to navigate the modern world. Rustboro was Hoenn's first city to feel like a statement, that even in a land born from nature's chaos, order and knowledge could carve out permanence and purpose. Dewford was small, but it pulsed with energy, a sunlit island of surfers, fishermen, and fighters. Brawley's gym brought a fresh rhythm, teaching momentum through fighting types, while the town's trendy phrase mechanic let language itself evolve with players. One visit could turn the island's conversations into global memes. Beneath its laid-back tone, Dewford embodied Hoenn's humor and experimentation. It was a place that felt both remote and alive, proving that even the smallest islands can echo across an entire region's culture. Slateport was the region's maritime artery, where story and setting intertwined seamlessly. Ships came and went, carrying both goods and plot lines. The market overflowed with trinkets, secret-based decorations, and rare TMS. Its beach shimmered with life, trainers battling in sand, Wingle gliding overhead. The harbor's constant motion mirrored Hoenn's themes of connection and movement. Slateport wasn't just a port, it was civilization's breath between nature's tides. Every visit felt like passing through a living crossroad where trade and adventure met on warm waves. Mobile sat at the very heart of Hoenn, a city of wires, wheels, and weather. Built where three major routes converged, it became the pulse of travel and technology. In the original games, its electric design matched Watson's personality, bright, eccentric, and humming with power. Later, ORAS reimagined it as a bustling mall city, filled with subplots and side stories. Mobile symbolized progress and motion, always expanding, but never still. It wasn't just a stopover, it was Hoenn's beating center, where journeys crossed like currents in a circuit. Verdanturf was the exhale after Mobile's spark, a quiet town wrapped in flowers and wind. Known for its clean air and love of Pokémon contests, it served as Hoenn's emotional interlude. The Rusturf Tunnel connected it to Rustboro, literally bridging labor and leisure, civilization and nature. Its people spoke gently, its music drifted like petals. Verdanturf reminded players that rest isn't wasted time, it's part of the rhythm. Amid all of Hoenn's storms, Verdanturf stood for peace, the moment between heartbeats where beauty lives. Falliber Town rested under a sky always hazy with ash. Near Route 113, its fields were dusted in gray, where soot fell like soft snow instead of rain. Despite its bleak surroundings, Falliber felt warm, a town of researchers, meteorologists, and dreamers who studied the stars even through the haze. The nearby ash fields became both setting and symbol, where life continued despite the weight above. Falliber wasn't meant to dazzle, it was meant to endure, showing that beauty often lives beneath the quiet persistence of dust. Laveridge was the heart of Hoenn's warmth, built beside bubbling hot springs, fed by the magma beneath Mount. Chimney. The town reflected Japan's volcanic spa culture, where rest was as sacred as battle. Steam drifted lazily over tiled pools, and travelers paused their journeys to soak, heal, and breathe. Flannery's fiery gym sat nearby, a trial of heat and focus, but Laveridge itself offered balance. It taught Hoenn's unspoken truth. Even in a land shaped by volcanoes, calm can rise from fire. Four Tree City wasn't built on the land but above it. Its wooden walkways and tree houses wove between the canopies, suspended in sunlight and birdsong. Living high in the forest wasn't just aesthetic, it was philosophy, harmony with nature, raised literally to new heights. Trainers climbed rope bridges instead of roads, learning balance with each step. Tree captured Hoenn's soul in architecture, elevated, organic, and serene. It was less a city and more a conversation between human hands and the forest that cradled them. Lily Cove's department store was where adventure met luxury. It towered over the harbor, offering everything from battle items to decorative TMS. It wasn't just a shop, it was a milestone, a place that marked how far players had come. Beside it stood the lottery corner, where hope could strike as quickly as a rare win. In a world built on effort, Lily Cove quietly rewarded luck. It represented Hoenn's shift toward comfort, where trainers stopped not to fight, but to enjoy the world they'd explored. Moss Deep was where Hoenn reached for the stars. The island town hosted the Space Center, a quiet monument to human ambition surrounded by sea. Tate and Liza, its twin gym leaders, embodied cosmic duality, two minds moving as one in the region's only double battle gym. Their arena glowed like starlight, blending science with spirituality. Moss Deep reminded players that exploration isn't just outward, but upward, and that Hoenn's story wasn't limited to land or ocean. It was a promise whispered to the sky. Sotopolis City was Hoenn's heart, hidden inside a volcano. Accessible only by dive and waterfall, it emerged suddenly, a circular city shimmering within a crater lake. Its walls of white rock felt ancient, touched by myth and silence. This was where the Weather Trio's story reached its climax, the place where nature's balance was restored. The descent into its calm waters felt like baptism, emerging into light again. Sotopolis wasn't just geography, it was a revelation, a city born from conflict that now floated in peace. Pacifidlog Town was Hoenn's drifting secret, built on Corsola coral and anchored by belief. Its houses floated gently above the ocean, creaking softly in the waves. To outsiders, it looked fragile, but its people spoke of Mirage Island and the unseen worlds beyond. Pacifidlog wasn't built for convenience. It was built for faith, for those who believed in places that appear only when the heart aligns. It was the last breath of Hoenn's ocean roots, where stories lingered long after the tides receded. Evergrande City wasn't a city at all. It was a gateway. Divided by waterfall, it led to the final climb through Victory Road and into the Pokémon League itself. The roar of falling water drowned hesitation, turning the journey's end into a declaration. Flowers lined the cliffside, and the path forward shimmered with promise. It was a place of arrival and reflection, where every gym badge became memory, and every step forward became legacy. In Hoenn, even endings felt like beginnings again. Mount Pyre rose solemnly from Hoenn's southern waters, a mountain of memory and myth. Its mist-shrouded slopes served as a burial site, a sacred space where trainers mourned their Pokémon under a crimson sky. But beneath its grief lay purpose. The orbs of Groudon and Kyogre rested here, linking sorrow to creation. The place felt ancient, quiet, and holy. Mount Pyre was proof that Hoenn's world breathed through emotion, where death and duty coexisted, and remembrance became the foundation for rebirth. Hoenn's Safari Zone was more than a wilderness. It was a microcosm of the region's living soul. Instead of traditional capture battles, trainers used Pokeblocks to influence what appeared, making it both strategy and serenity. The environment responded to gentleness rather than aggression. It was exploration reimagined, not about domination, but coexistence. The zone's music, light, and freedom encouraged patience, reflection, and play. Hoenn's safari wasn't a test of power. It was an invitation to listen to the wild and let it choose you back. Route 120 was a trail soaked in atmosphere, literally. Its constant rain wasn't just aesthetic. It shaped every battle fought beneath its clouds. Water moves surged with power, fire types struggled, and lightning split the air in bursts of rhythm. The storm gave the route identity, melancholy yet alive, like the land itself was remembering something. Players trudged through puddles, reflecting the forest's canopy, each drop amplifying the sense of immersion. In Hoenn's design, Route 120 wasn't just weather, it was emotion, a natural lullaby of rain and memory. The Winstraight family on Route 111 turned a simple roadside house into a legend. One by one, each family member challenged the player in consecutive battles, their pride and love woven into dialogue. Losing wasn't shameful, it was part of their charm. They represented Hoenn's spirit of connection, battles as family tradition, not rivalry. Their home, humble yet full of trophies, stood as a reminder that strength isn't only about badges or titles. It's about legacy shared across generations, fought with warmth, not ego. The TM for secret power, found around Slateport Market, was one of the most unassuming treasures in Hoenn. While many players passed it by, those who experimented discovered its quiet genius. A move that changed effects based on terrain, reflecting the world's diversity. Its presence in a marketplace was no coincidence. Slateport represented curiosity, trade, and interaction. Secret power fit perfectly there, blending commerce and creativity. It wasn't just an attack, it was the region's philosophy condensed into code, adaptability as the truest strength. The trick room in Mauville wasn't the time-twisting move we'd later come to know, but a literal room of riddles. Inside, puzzles shifted with each attempt, challenging perception and patience rather than strength. It served as an early experiment in design playfulness, Hoenn testing boundaries between logic and whimsy. Though unrelated to the competitive move that would inherit its name, the room carried the same energy, flipping expectations. Mauville's Trick House taught that Pokémon games weren't just about victory, they were about curiosity rewarded through clever persistence. The meteorite heist at Mount Ichimney fueled one of Hoenn's most defining story splits. Depending on the version, either Team Magma or Team Aqua stole the artifact, each seeking to manipulate land or sea. The event turned ideology into gameplay, two sides of nature's coin clashing over balance. The volcanic setting symbolized tension ready to erupt. What began as a simple fetch quest evolved into philosophy, control versus harmony. Mount Chimney wasn't just a mountain, it was Hoenn's moral summit, where ambition first met consequence. Emerald's Safari Zone expansion brought nostalgia and novelty together, hiding Johto species behind National Dex access. It rewarded dedication, not just to the current journey, but to completion itself. The expansion was a love letter to longtime fans, turning familiar Pokémon into distant echoes rediscovered. Hoenn's interconnected design thrived on this layering of worlds. Every new creature felt like an old friend returning home. It reminded players that even after the main adventure, there was always something waiting beyond the horizon. Unlike later generations that used bait and rocks, Hoenn's Safari Zone replaced randomness with elegance. Pokeblocks, crafted from berries and care, determined which Pokémon appeared. It made capturing feel organic, trainers influencing nature with gentleness instead of chance. The change reflected Hoenn's ecological heart, a region where cooperation replaced control. Feeding the wild rather than frightening it fit the region's tone perfectly. Every encounter felt earned, patient, and alive. Hoenn's safari wasn't about conquest. It was about coexistence painted in color and flavor. Route 111's desert was both hazard and treasure. Sandstorms blurred the horizon, fossils slept beneath the dunes, and mirages danced like ghosts. Two fossils, the claw and the root, waited for discovery, splitting evolution paths into Armaldo or Cradley. The area's harshness gave those creatures meaning, life that survived extinction. Digging there wasn't just exploration, it was resurrection. The desert embodied Hoenn's deep time mythology, a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, history endures, waiting for someone curious enough to brush away the sand. Desert ruins, island cave, and ancient tomb were Hoenn's silent cathedrals. Each hid one of the three Regititans, locked behind riddles carved in braille and wrapped in atmosphere. They weren't just puzzles, they were acts of devotion. The isolation, the still air, the sense that time itself had paused, all made the discoveries feel sacred. Together, they formed a triangle of mystery across the region. Solving them wasn't about loot, it was about listening. Hoenn's ancient world didn't shout, it whispered in stone. Braille in Generation 3 was more than a cipher, it was a gesture of inclusion and immersion. Used across Hoenn, and even in Fire Red and Leaf Green, it became the first time a real-world accessibility tool appeared as a puzzle language in Pokémon. Players unfamiliar with it had to learn, decoding not through brute force, but through empathy and curiosity. Its presence gave Hoenn a sense of depth that transcended gameplay. It turned reading into discovery and made silence legible, linking ancient ruins to human kindness. The contest halls of Hoenn were as fluid as the tides themselves, changing locations between Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and the remakes. In the originals, each major city hosted a different contest rank, forcing trainers to travel and explore as they climbed through cool, beauty, cute, smart, and tough. In ORAS, the halls unified, reflecting modernization, less wandering, more focus. This shift symbolized Hoenn's evolving spirit. Once a region about journey and discovery, it became about refinement, showing how progress often trades distance for elegance. The Magma and Aqua hideouts embodied Hoenn's split ideology. In Ruby, Magma's lair burned beneath Jagged Pass. In Sapphire, Aqua's base rested beneath the waves near Lily Cove. Each location wasn't just scenery, it represented their respective philosophies, domination through land or sea. The mirrored layouts and encounters emphasized duality, turning geography into storytelling. Even Emerald, where both groups clashed, treated their hideouts as reflections of obsession. These bases weren't villain lairs, they were monuments to imbalance, carved into Hoenn's elemental foundation. Moss Deep's Space Center was one of Hoenn's most whimsical details, rockets standing tall against the sea breeze, quietly counting toward imaginary launches. Developers added new numbers to the countdown in later games, teasing hopeful fans who wondered if it would ever blast off. The building symbolized human curiosity, ambition that stretched beyond oceans and storms into the cosmos. It didn't matter that the rockets never moved. Their presence alone made players dream. In a region built on earth and water, Moss Deep pointed toward the stars. The Lily Cove Art Museum served as both reward and reflection. Trainers who triumphed in high-level contests found their Pokémon immortalized on the gallery walls, brushstrokes capturing grace instead of power. Each painting represented more than victory. It was recognition of emotion and artistry. Visitors could admire the same creatures they raised, now part of Hoenn's culture. The museum made contests feel meaningful beyond ribbons. It turned personal effort into collective beauty. Lily Cove's art wasn't static. It breathed through the stories players brought into its halls. The fairy system in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire tied Hoenn together like sinew. From Slateport's bustling docks to Lily Cove's elegance and Sea Movile's rusted mystery, each route felt alive with motion and lore. The fairies weren't shortcuts, they were transitions, moments of calm between adventures. The sound of waves and engines blended nostalgia with progress. They symbolized Hoenn's heart perfectly, Islands separated by sea, but connected by human touch. Every departure a small reminder that journeys never truly end. They just keep circling home. Route 110's trick house was chaos in wood and wallpaper. With each new badge, the trick master added a fresh puzzle, scrolls hidden behind trainers, secret doors, invisible mazes, and traps that tested creativity. Its escalating difficulty mirrored your growth as a trainer. What began as a novelty became tradition, a recurring reminder that wit was as valuable as strength. Each visit ended with a boast and a laugh, making the trick house less about competition and more about shared amusement between creator and challenger. Match call on the Pokénav made Hoenn feel alive long after the story ended. Trainers you'd met across routes would ring for rematches, their teams stronger with every badge you earned. It transformed random encounters into evolving relationships, showing that others grew alongside you. The mechanic made the region breathe, familiar faces reappearing, rivalries continuing, progress mirrored. It was one of Hoenn's most subtle achievements, proof that the world didn't wait for you. Everyone else was living their story too, just off-screen. The Mach and Acro bikes were Hoenn's most personal vehicles of exploration, two choices that shaped your entire adventure. The Mach bike, built for speed, blurred landscapes into streaks of green. The Acro bike, lighter and slower, rewarded patience with tricks and balance. Each unlocked paths the other couldn't, forcing decisions that reflected playstyle. Hoenn didn't just offer mobility, it offered personality. Choosing your bike wasn't mechanical, it was philosophical, asking whether you preferred to race through life or linger to master its rhythm. The Acro bike was subtle mastery, a dance of hops and precision. It could bunny hop across narrow rails, leap over ledges, and traverse routes where others faltered. Its design rewarded timing and control, patience over momentum. Players who chose it learned to observe rather than rush, to balance rather than sprint. Every jump felt intentional, every motion rhythmic. The Acro bike captured Hoenn's slower beauty, exploration not as speed, but as mindfulness. Sometimes the best adventures happen one quiet hop at a time. Shoal Cave was Hoenn's living clock, its tides shifting with real-world time. Visit once, and salt lined the cavern floor. Return later, and the water had risen, revealing new chambers of icy blue. Gathering shoal salt and shoal shells to craft a shell bell required patience, an awareness of nature's cycle. The cave wasn't static, it responded to your world's rhythm. Shoal Cave taught one of Hoenn's gentlest lessons. Time isn't an obstacle, it's a companion. Those who waited found reward, written in the tide. The shell bell was one of Hoenn's most quietly powerful held items. Crafted from Shoal Cave's collected shells and salt, it restored a small portion of health each time the holder dealt damage. Simple, yet endlessly practical, it rewarded aggression with endurance. In long battles, that tiny recovery often made the difference between victory and fainting. Beyond mechanics, it embodied Hoenn's theme of reciprocity. The ocean gives back what you take from it. Every swing, every strike, was a dialogue between resilience and rhythm. Route 115 was Hoenn's reminder that exploration rarely ends where you expect. On the first pass, most players simply move along, unaware that hidden cliffs and coves await once surf and other HMs are acquired. Returning later reveals new treasures, trainers, items, and quiet corners missed before. The design was deliberate, encouraging curiosity and memory. Hoenn's geography wasn't linear. It invited you to loop back, to rediscover what you thought you'd already known. Route 115 whispered softly, "Adventure rewards those who revisit the past." New Mobile was an optional detour beneath the region's electric heart, a silent power plant requested by Watson himself. Its locked doors, humming floors, and robotic sentinels told a different story about technology's reach. Players who explored it found not danger, but discarded progress, an abandoned experiment still flickering with life. The rewards, like Volt Switch and Thunder-related TMs, symbolized potential reclaimed. New Mobile wasn't a dungeon of conquest. It was reflection, a reminder that innovation leaves echoes, and sometimes the brightest lights hum beneath forgotten ground. The Safari Zone's rear gates were Hoenn's secret expansion pack, unlocked only after completing the national decks. Beyond them, new habitats unfolded, lush fields, and unfamiliar species, many returning from Johto. It was the region's way of blending legacy and discovery, turning post-game content into a living reunion. The addition made the safari feel endless, its wilderness still growing even after the story concluded. It was Hoenn's promise kept, the idea that the world never truly stops opening, even after the credits fade. Route 120's Kecleon encounters were both mechanic and metaphor. Invisible at first, they appeared only when revealed by Steven's Devon scope, materializing as the forest shimmered. Each battle was a quiet revelation, something unseen made visible, tangible, and real. These weren't random obstacles, but living reminders of perception's limits. Once exposed, Kecleon could be caught like any other, but the experience lingered. Hoenn used this small trick to say something simple yet profound. The world's mysteries don't disappear. They wait to be noticed. The ice room of Shoal Cave was a frozen jewel hidden beneath the tides. Accessible only during low tide, it glimmered with crystals and frost, transforming the cave's mood from salt and sea to silence and stillness. Trainers who timed their visits right found not only rare items, but the satisfaction of harmony with nature's schedule. The area wasn't just designed for challenge, it was designed for patience. Shoal Cave's ice room proved that beauty, like reward, reveals itself only to those who wait. Sutopolis Gym's ice puzzle became one of Hoenn's most enduring brain teasers. Each step cracked fragile ice tiles beneath your feet, forcing you to trace a perfect path without missteps. Fall once, and you'd plunge to the floor below to start again. It was part logic, part rhythm, a dance of precision. The challenge wasn't just mental, it was emotional, teaching calm under pressure. The glimmering ice and gentle echoes turned frustration into focus, reminding players that grace, not brute force, was the key to mastery. Winona's gym embodied freedom. Surrounded by wind and height in Fortree's treetop city, her flying-type team turned battle into choreography. Altaria, her ace, floated like a dream, graceful yet formidable, blending elegance with power. The fight mirrored her philosophy, adaptability and poise in motion. Winona wasn't simply a test of strength. She was a reflection of Hoenn's spirit, where balance between sky and land defined success. Her calm tone and serene arena taught that power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's carried by the wind. Watson's electric gym in Mobile was equal parts laughter and voltage. His magnetic floors and electric puzzles created one of the series' first truly dynamic indoor stages. His team, anchored by Magneton, represented the height of Gen 3's early Steel-type dominance, long before later nerfs balanced the field. Watson's cheerful demeanor masked real challenge. His Pokémon hit hard, punishing impatience. Yet his battle never felt cruel. It was charged with joy, with the spirit of a tinkerer testing your limits, one spark at a time. Flannery's fiery gym burned with passion, both literal and emotional. Her sun-drenched battlefield radiated heat, empowering her fire types while disarming water users with sunlight. Her Torchic, in particular, stood as her pride, slow, resilient, and dangerously powerful. It punished reckless play, turning Hoenn's midgame into a true trial of strategy. Flannery herself reflected her Pokémon, fierce yet uncertain, a new leader still learning to control her flame. The battle wasn't just about victory, it was about composure, the art of holding your fire without losing your spark. Norman's gym stood out as one of Hoenn's most personal challenges, your father as both mentor and obstacle. His Slaking was infamous, a creature of overwhelming strength balanced by its truant ability. Beating him wasn't about raw power, but precision, protecting on idle turns, striking only when openings appeared. The fight became a lesson in patience and timing, a tactical dance around restraint. Norman embodied discipline, proof that even the strongest must learn control. In that gym, Hoenn taught players that mastery often means knowing when not to move. Roxanne, the first gym leader of Hoenn, set the tone for the region's balance between education and endurance. Her rock-type team countered early game bugs and birds, forcing trainers to adapt rather than brute force their way through. The battle felt like a gentle exam, measured, deliberate, and fair. Roxanne wasn't just a teacher by title, she was one in spirit. Her polished gym and calm demeanor introduced Hoenn's guiding theme, knowledge as power, and strength refined through understanding, not aggression. Brawly turned Hoenn's second gym into a test of rhythm. Fighting types dominated his sandy dojo on Dewford Island, using focus energy and bulk up to snowball into dangerous threats. The battle rewarded awareness and momentum control. Hesitate, and his Pokémon would overwhelm you. Brawly's surfer aesthetic wasn't just personality, it mirrored his battle flow, constant motion, strength through flexibility. He represented Hoenn's youthful energy, that sense of finding your stride mid-journey. His gym wasn't about domination, it was about balance, both physical and mental. Tate and Liza's gym was one of Hoenn's most memorable innovations, a double battle that redefined strategy. The psychic twins moved as one, their attacks synchronized with eerie precision. Facing them meant managing both offense and positioning, something entirely new for many players. Their calm expressions masked a genuine tactical challenge. The arena's glowing cosmic design reflected their connection, mind and matter intertwined. Tate and Liza weren't just leaders, they were the embodiment of unity in battle. Two souls, one strategy, perfect equilibrium. Wallace and Juan's leadership swap between versions turned Sootopolis into a reflection of legacy. In Ruby and Sapphire, Wallace's elegance defined the final gym, his team a fluid, graceful test of water-type mastery. In Emerald, he ascended to champion, leaving his mentor Hoenn in charge, continuing the lineage. The change felt natural, like the passing of a tide. Both embodied refinement and artistry, proving that water isn't just force, it's movement, adaptability, and reflection. Their roles made Pseutopolis timeless, where beauty itself commanded respect. Steven's return in Emerald's postgame was Hoenn's ultimate encore. Once champion, he stepped back into mystery, now wandering the region's caves and ruins. Battling him again after completing the main story felt mythic, a reunion framed by quiet respect. His team, centered on Metagross, symbolized intellect and stability. Steven wasn't just a boss fight, he was Hoenn's conscience, the bridge between ambition and wisdom. Facing him post-game wasn't about victory, it was about closure, a final test from the man who once watched your first steps. The volcano cable car to mount. Chimney became one of Hoenn's most iconic set pieces, a moment of scale and wonder on early Game Boy Advance hardware. Watching the lift rise through drifting ash and molten sky gave a rare sense of vertical storytelling, a journey through the elements themselves. It wasn't just a transition, it was immersion. Trainers ascending that mountain weren't simply changing zones, they were climbing into Hoenn's mythos, where earth and fire argued eternally. The cable car wasn't transport, it was pilgrimage. Jagged Pass was Hoenn's first vertical puzzle, a rugged trail winding down mount, chimney dotted with ledges and narrow paths. Without the right bike, most of its routes remained teasingly out of reach. Returning later with skill unlocked its true design, turning a once one-way descent into a playground of shortcuts and secrets. The area embodied Hoenn's evolving exploration philosophy. Progress wasn't just about new tools, it was about memory. Jagged Pass reminded players that sometimes the world opens only to those who return prepared. The Safari Zone's Wobbuffet rules, infamous in later generations, didn't exist in Hoenn's simpler format. No turn-trapping mechanics or forced loss scenarios, just pure chance and patience. The absence of complexity made it feel freer, more organic. Players could focus on charm and capture rather than frustration. It represented a gentler era of design, where exploration outweighed consequence. Hoenn's Safari wasn't about tension, it was about curiosity. Even without gimmicks, it thrived, proving that simplicity often outlasts spectacle in creating lasting memories. Route 120's bridges were more than scenic, they were staging grounds for surprise. As players crossed the misty spans surrounded by rain and forest, invisible Kecleon would suddenly appear, revealed by the Devon scope. The sudden shimmer, the flash of color. It was one of Hoenn's most subtle yet startling moments. These jump scares weren't malicious, they were playful, reminders that the world was alive even when unseen. Route 120's bridges taught you to expect the unexpected, where calm beauty always hid a quiet secret. The magma emblem in Pokémon Emerald turned a jagged pass from a familiar hiking trail into a secret revelation. Once obtained from Mount Pyre, carrying it caused a hidden entrance to tremble open, a concealed base belonging to Team Magma. The design was pure Hoenn magic, a familiar route suddenly recontextualized, its walls hiding entire storylines in plain sight. Inside, torches flickered and conspiracies unfolded beneath the mountain's heat. The emblem wasn't just a key, it was a promise that Hoenn still had layers left unseen. The Shoal Cave craftsman, tucked away deep within the tidal caverns, only agreed to create the shell bell once you'd collected 4 shoal salts and 4 shoal shells, each gathered at opposing tides. The request wasn't difficult, but it demanded awareness of the real world's rhythm. He worked not by schedule, but by harmony with nature. When the bell was finally made, it chimed softly, like the ocean whispering thanks. The moment captured Hoenn's essence perfectly, reward through patience and connection through time. Phoebus's spawn tiles on Route 119 were a blend of science and mystery, algorithmically limited to 6 random water tiles that changed whenever the in-game trendy phrase shifted. It was Hoenn's ultimate riddle, blending mathematics with myth. Players became amateur scientists, logging coordinates, tracking trends, sharing discoveries. Catching Phoebus wasn't luck, it was perseverance, data, and obsession. Every appearance felt miraculous, every change a fresh puzzle. In Hoenn's rain-drenched rivers, Phoebus taught a truth no Pokédex entry could. Rarity isn't scarcity, it's commitment rewarded. Pacifidlog's lore described a town not built, but grown. Its floating platforms rested on Corsola coral, drifting gently with the ocean currents. What sounded whimsical actually hinted at ecological storytelling, Corsola's living reefs serving as both foundation and protector. The idea of a town built atop living creatures blurred the line between civilization and nature. Pacifidlog's architecture wasn't just design, it was coexistence. Its legends about Mirage Island and unseen forces reflected its physical reality, a fragile, hopeful place that survived by trusting the sea beneath it. The sea roots of Hoenn were labyrinths of movement, currents pulling players across turquoise waters, only to spit them out on hidden sandbars. It was there, where the flow finally calmed, that treasures often lay buried, heart scales, pearls, rare items. These small beaches felt like rewards for surrendering to chaos. Hoenn's ocean wasn't an obstacle, it was a living maze that rewarded intuition. The idea was poetic. Let the current carry you, and you'll still find something worth keeping when the waves finally rest. New Mobile's basement added an industrial rhythm to exploration. Beneath the quiet city lay humming generators, their switches altering encounter pacing and light patterns. Each flip echoed through the metallic corridors, revealing a design that felt both mechanical and alive. It wasn't about danger, it was about curiosity, about how even abandoned places pulse with potential. The structure's looping layout mirrored an electrical circuit, with you as the current. New Mobile wasn't power restored, it was connection rediscovered, a soft glow in the dark machinery of progress. Mirage Island's daily check ran on unseen time. Precisely at midnight, the game generated a hidden number to compare with your Pokemon's internal values. If a match occurred, the island existed for the next 24 hours. If not, it vanished like a dream. This system made Mirage Island feel alive yet unreachable, a secret that breathed alongside the real world. Players waiting day after day weren't chasing data, they were chasing hope. Hoenn turned a number generator into mythology, a random chance into legend. Contest ranks, from normal to master, gave Hoenn's performance side structure and ambition. Each rank unlocked new visual flair, culminating in Lily Cove's art museum displays, where paintings immortalized the victors. It was more than a ladder, it was legacy. Trainers who raised their Pokémon through contests weren't just earning ribbons, they were creating culture within the game world. Hoenn treated art and battle as equals. Every round, every performance added color to its story. In Hoenn, beauty and bravery shared the same stage under one spotlight. Contest accessories and costumes in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire turned Hoenn's already theatrical contests into full-on performances. Bows, tiaras, ribbons, and props personalized each Pokémon, transforming them from battlers into stars. The visual flair was a love letter to the charm of presentation. Style mattered as much as substance. Audiences cheered not just for moves, but for sparkle and confidence. The new accessories deepened what contests always represented, the joy of self-expression. Hoenn's contests became more than competition. They became celebration. Deoxys's forms each told a story about adaptation. Speed form, with its razor-thin limbs and flowing motion, was its most iconic, a design that redefined what fast meant. Its stat distribution sacrificed defense entirely for blistering agility, making it feel like a living beam of light. The transformations between attack, defense, and speed weren't just mechanical, they were existential. Deoxys was evolution visualized, proof that survival meant transformation. In a region obsessed with balance, Deoxys represented motion beyond limits, a celestial being of endless recalibration. Jirachi's Serene Grace ability doubled the odds of secondary effects activating, a small mechanic that would later define competitive nightmares. Moves like Iron Head turned from tools of chance into engines of inevitability, making Jirachi both adored and feared. Yet within Hoenn, the ability matched its lore. This was the Wish Pokémon, after all, bending probability in quiet favor of those it bonded with. Serene Grace wasn't about luck. It was faith rewarded. Jirachi didn't dominate through power, but through kindness disguised as math. Metagross embodied everything Hoenn's late game represented: evolution, intellect, and endurance. A pseudo-legend born from two Beldum fusing, it carried both the weight of steel and the calm of thought. Its steel/psychic typing granted resilience few could match, making it Steven's perfect partner and symbol of refinement. Metagross wasn't loud in its power. It radiated certainty, like a machine that believed in itself. Its 4 legs and glowing core felt alien, yet purposeful, a living equation forged from logic, memory, and resolve. Salamence and Metagross became Hoenn's double pseudo-icons, a pairing that embodied the region's dual themes of wild instinct and structured brilliance. Salamence represented raw emotion, the dream of flight made flesh. Metagross, cold precision and intellect. Together, they symbolized the meeting of chaos and order, nature and technology. Facing them both in high-level battles felt like confronting Hoenn itself, untamed and engineered in perfect balance. Their legacy lasted far beyond Generation 3, defining rivalries and teams across eras. 2 titans, 1 philosophy of evolution. Groudon and Kyogre's clash wasn't just story, it was a weather war written into code. Groudon's drought filled the sky with endless sunlight, strengthening fire and withering water. Kyogre's drizzle did the opposite, summoning torrential rain that smothered flame. They were opposites not in hatred, but in necessity, forces that shaped each other through tension. Their battle represented balance misunderstood, creation through conflict. Hoenn's entire ecosystem responded to them, proving that weather wasn't backdrop, it was narrative, and the sky itself carried memory of myth. Rayquaza's airlock stood as peace in motion, the stillness between 2 storms. Its ability nullified all weather effects, restoring neutrality when chaos reigned. It wasn't dominance, but mediation, the dragon that quieted the elements. When Rayquaza descended from the heavens, it wasn't to fight, but to silence the noise. Airlock symbolized transcendence, a reminder that even nature's extremes could coexist when balance returned. In Hoenn's story of Earth and Sea, Rayquaza wasn't just the third legend, it was the breath between heartbeats. Corsola's quiet lore connected directly to Passifidlog's identity. The town's wooden platforms weren't truly wood at all. They floated atop Corsola coral, their bright pink skeletons forming the very base of life on the sea. This detail, often overlooked, turned a simple fishing town into a living ecosystem. The people of Passifidlog didn't conquer the ocean, they collaborated with it. Corsola weren't decoration, they were foundation. Through this bond, Hoenn quietly told one of its deepest truths. Survival comes from harmony, not dominance. Routes 124 and 126 held one of Hoenn's most poetic transitions. Dive rings scattered across the seafloor, leading to tunnels into Sotopolis's crater lake. What looked like shimmering circles of light were actually gateways between worlds, surface and silence, air and depth. Descending through them felt like falling into memory itself, watching the ocean's blue darken until land reappeared below. Few other regions offered such spatial poetry. In Hoenn, even geography had emotion. Diving wasn't travel, it was transformation, from explorer to witness. Evergrande City wasn't really a city, it was a threshold. Its outer cliffs framed a waterfall that guarded the entrance to the Pokémon League, while its inner halls echoed with quiet reverence. The split between the natural exterior and the monumental interior mirrored Hoenn's philosophy: civilization, emerging from nature, not erasing it. For many players, Evergrande wasn't an arrival, but a reflection, the moment before culmination. It stood as both an ending and a beginning, where the journey's rhythm finally met its chorus. Shoal Cave's ecosystem shifted with every tide, a world that rewrote itself twice a day. High tide filled corridors with seawater and tentacool drifts. Low tide exposed glittering ice floors and snorant dens. The encounters changed, the music softened, and the entire cave seemed to breathe. This tidal rhythm made exploration feel alive, predictable yet personal. Shoal Cave's design was subtle genius, the world changing not when you did something, but when you simply waited. Hoenn's ocean, like time, rewarded patience above all else. Route 120's thunderstorm ambiance captured Hoenn's melancholy beauty better than almost any other moment. Rain dripped through forest leaves, distant lightning flashed across the horizon, and the soundtrack itself seemed to tremble. It was both environmental storytelling and emotional foreshadowing, testing Castform's weather abilities while enveloping players in mood. The storm wasn't danger, it was introspection. Every drop, every rumble felt alive, a reminder that Hoenn's soul lived not just in battles or legends, but in the simple music of weather remembering itself. In Hoenn's contest arenas, the judges' hearts weren't random, they were rhythm. Each round, the crowd's reaction rose and fell with your timing, move combos, and flair. Land a rain dance before thunder, or string together coordinated performances, and the cheers multiplied. It was one of the first systems to blend emotion into gameplay, measuring not just success, but style. Those hearts captured Hoenn's creative soul. That performance mattered as much as power. Every sparkle, every pose, was applause turned into pixels. The acrobike's narrow rails across safari paths and Route 119 were quiet attests of skill and patience. Unlike the mock bike's raw speed, the acro's bunny hops and tight balancing rewarded finesse. Those rails led to tiny, unreachable ledges, secret berries, trainers, or treasures waiting beyond easy reach. The challenge was never punishing, but playful, a reminder that exploration in Hoenn was about mastery through rhythm. Where other games asked for brute strength, Hoenn simply asked, "How well can you listen to your own motion?" Secret bases weren't just decoration, they became daily rituals of connection. Once friends mixed records, their bases appeared in your world, complete with their Pokémon teams. Battling them offered easy experience and money, but more importantly, it made Hoenn feel shared. Every tree hollow or seaside cave could hold someone's personal mark, a footprint in another player's journey. Long before online features became standard, secret base battles proved that the heart of adventure was community, not competition. It was friendship coded into wilderness. Phoebus's migration in Generation 4 to Mount. Coronet marked the end of one of Hoenn's most legendary mysteries. No longer confined to 6 shifting tiles, its new spawn logic felt more conventional, but something magical was lost. In Hoenn, finding Phoebus was a ritual, a test of patience, curiosity, and persistence. Its Gen 3 system turned rivers into puzzles and fishermen into storytellers. Later versions honored that legacy, but the original 6-tile enigma remains Hoenn's greatest myth, an impossible fish that taught generations to keep casting anyway. Hoenn's identity rests on 3 words: weather, water, and wonder. Every map route, every mechanic, and every story thread loops through that triad. Weather changes aren't just visuals, they're mood. Water isn't barrier, it's bloodstream. And wonder is the quiet pulse beneath it all, turning code into feeling. Hoenn's balance of elements made it more than a region. It became an ecosystem that breathed with you as you played. In its tides, storms, and sunsets, Hoenn whispered its truth. The world itself is alive, and that's Hoenn, a region that never really stops moving. Its tides still breathe, its storms still sing, and its warmth still lingers in every step you take. From coral towns to crater lakes, from invisible Pokémon to forgotten songs, Hoenn's beauty isn't just in its design, it's in how it makes you feel. A world of balance, memory, and quiet life. So if you ever return, don't rush, just listen. The region's still breathing. It's just waiting for you to notice.